You know about Blanton's, but do you know the story behind it? Welcome to this episode of Wistery, where I explore the rich and colorful history of your favorite beverage. I'm your Professor Bourbon Barry, and do I have a story for you? To truly understand the history of Blanton's, we have to go all the way back to 1881, which is the year that Colonel Albert Bacon Blanton was born. Colonel Blanton was born in Kentucky near the Buffalo Trace distillery, and at the age of 16, he was hired to work at the distillery as a clerk. He started off working as a clerk, but by 1921, he had become president of the distillery, overseeing all the operations. According to the Blanton's website, Colonel Blanton's business and leadership skills allowed the distillery to remain open during Prohibition when many other distilleries were closing their doors. And his leadership guided the distillery through difficult times during the Depression, floods, and World War II. Somewhere along the line, Colonel Blanton began to select single barrels of bourbon from Warehouse H and bottle those barrels for friends, family, and dignitaries. Now, Colonel Blanton passed away in 1959, so the story doesn't end there because Blanton's single barrel didn't exist. So now we have to meet the other important player in the story, and that's a man by the name of Elmer T. Lee. After serving as a radar bombardier in World War II, Elmer T. Lee returned to Kentucky and earned an engineering degree from the University of Kentucky. And in the late 1940s, Elmer T. Lee began to work for Colonel Blanton as a maintenance engineer. Lee was a gifted engineer, and his skills at bourbon production eventually landed him the job as plant superintendent. From there, Elmer T. Lee eventually earned the shared titles of plant manager and master distiller, and he oversaw the distillery's growth and modernization until his retirement in 1985. After his retirement, Mr. Lee continued to serve as Master Distiller Emeritus and Ambassador for Buffalo Trace Distillery until his passing in 2013. All right, so with that backstory, how did Blanton's come to be? Well, in 1984, Mr. Lee was asked to create a new bourbon of distinction, and he recalled his days working with Colonel Blanton, where the Colonel would take these single barrels of bourbon and bottle them for special occasions. And he decided to create a bourbon in tribute of Colonel Blanton. This from the Blanton's website, and I quote, Elmer T. Lee introduced the world to Blanton single barrel bourbon a year before he retired. In doing so, he revolutionized the industry by creating the super premium category of bourbon with the world's first single barrel bourbon. This idea was somewhat radical at the time because it challenged the identity of what most folks thought bourbon to be. Today, most distilleries offer one or more single barrel bottlings, but Blanton's was the first. End quote. So now you know. So the next time you pick up a bottle of Blanton Single Barrel, maybe you'll know just a little bit more about the deep and rich history that goes into every one of these iconic bottles. I'm your Professor Bourbon Barry. Thanks for watching.